This program was first broadcast on Canterbury's access media station, Plains FM, and was made with the assistance of New Zealand On Air.
It's time for Emergence News on Plains FM 96.9, citizen-made radio.
Kia ora and welcome to Emergence News. My name is Nigel, and joining me through the wonder and convenience of technology is Peter. I'm in Christchurch, and Peter, you're up there in Wellington.
Yeah, sunny Wellington today. You wouldn't say the same yesterday, but it's beautiful today.
It sounds like Christchurch weather, ever changeable. So we'll be joining Peter in just a moment, but first up I'd like to talk to you about some information at Share International from an American scientist and astronomer, Carl Sagan. He was a 2.4 initiate, and he has some interesting views on God, religion, and spirituality. So I've got a couple of interesting quotes just for you to ponder, to think about. And he says, "We've arranged a global civilization in which most crucial elements profoundly depend on science and technology. We've also arranged things so that almost no one understands science and technology. This is a prescription for disaster," according to Carl Sagan. He says, "We might get away with it for a while, but sooner or later this combustible mixture of ignorance and power is going to blow up in our faces." And I've got another quote from him, which I thought provides us with an opportunity to consider the meaning of the word spiritual. You might remember on a previous program of ours, we identified the term spiritual as the quality of any activity which drives the human being forward towards some form of development: physical, emotional, intuitive, social. In other words, in advance of his or her present state. And that spiritual definition was from author Benjamin Creme. Now back to Carl Sagan. His thoughts on the word spiritual are, and I quote, "Spirit comes from the Latin word to breathe. What we breathe is air, which is certainly matter, however thin. Despite usage to the contrary, there is no necessary implication in the word spiritual that we are talking of anything other than matter, including the matter of which the brain is made, or anything outside the realm of science. On occasion, I will feel free to use the word. Science is not only compatible with spirituality, it is a profound source of spirituality. When we recognize our place in an immensity of light years and in the passage of ages, when we grasp the intricacy, beauty, and subtlety of life, then that soaring feeling, that sense of elation and humility combined, is surely spiritual." And that was Carl Sagan on spirituality and its relationship with science. What did you make of that, Peter?
Yeah, great. So how long ago was he around, Nigel?
Our lifetime, your lifetime.
Yeah.
Yeah, he worked, NASA used him because he was very interested in astronomy and the planets, and so he did a lot of work in that field as well.
Yeah, fantastic, yeah.
For a religious perspective on technology and science, here's some thoughts from Pope Francis. He says, "I would encourage you in your deliberations to make the intrinsic dignity of every man and woman the key criteria in evaluating emerging technologies. These will prove ethically sound to the extent that they help respect that dignity and increase its expression at every level of human life. And finally, a comment on spirituality, and this one from a member of the spiritual hierarchy through Benjamin Creme. And the Master says, "The most important piece of knowledge that everyone needs, I believe, is the knowledge of the spiritual constitution of humanity. Everyone needs to know that they are the monad, the spark of God, the divine self, which reflects itself on the soul plane as the individualized human soul, part of the one great oversoul, which incarnates through the law of rebirth in relation to the law of karma, over and over again, until that individualized soul has completed the evolutionary journey." Much of this information remains unopened and unread by the majority of humanity. That's according to former Share International editor and author Benjamin Creme. And I think that that's a remarkable statement. He says much of this information remains unopened and unread by the majority of humanity. He says theosophical teachings, the Agni Yoga teachings, and the Alice Bailey teachings are all largely unread, even by those who know about them.
It's very true, actually, isn't it? Because I mean, we do know about these things. We do know that all these books we've got the books, and often we haven't even read them.
That's right.
So,
well, that quote from Benjamin Creme's from out of Maitreya's Mission, Volume 3, and when I read it, I thought, as you do, it's absolutely true. The majority of human beings aren't sufficiently educated on, for example, the law of karma, the law of rebirth, and and just how dependent we are on those processes, because the law of action and reaction is what governs our planet.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, it's funny because my mother-in-law used to teach esoteric astrology, and she taught us how to do our charts and that sort of thing, but looking at the esoteric meanings behind it. But, you know, always she said the first thing you must look at when you're doing any esoteric studies is the constitution of man. And she used to drum this into us. Do you remember it? Have you got it? The constitution of man, that we are a spark of God.
That's right.
That we are the monad.
We each have that quality, and that's what, of course, the greeting Namaste is about, is saluting the divine quality within each of us.
Yeah, that's right, yes.
Peter, I look forward to catching up with you in just a moment. What have you got for us today?
Well, first of all, I've got a few quotations from the Agni Yoga books, and I'll just read those out. They came up in the October Share International. And then I'd like to read The Dark Before the Dawn by the Master through Benjamin Creme.
You are listening to Emergence News, and we welcome your company. Thanks for joining us. And calling in from Wellington, here in New Zealand, our capital city, the political capital of New Zealand, is Peter. And over to you, Peter.
Thanks very much, Nigel. Quotations from the Agni Yoga books, Hierarchy and Heart. According to the prophecy of the most ancient teachers, when humanity loses the foundation of the teaching and sinks into obscurity, the epoch of Maitreya will take place. The heart of our heart is like the heart of the cosmos. The heart of an Arhat is like the fire of the sun. Eternity and the motion of cosmos fill the heart of the Arhat. Maitreya is coming, radiant with all fires. His heart is a flame and compassion for destitute humanity. His heart is a flame from the affirmation of the new covenants. Maitreya wishes to hasten all. Maitreya wishes that all should be successfully accomplished. Maitreya wishes you joy. Maitreya wishes to grant to humanity a gift through the fiery experience of Agni Yoga. Maitreya wishes to transform life on earth in the radiance of the Mother of the World. Yes, 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 the beauty of life is limitless. The epoch of Maitreya is the age of the heart. Only with the heart can you fathom the value of Maitreya's treasures. Only with the heart can you understand how greatly all accumulations and accommodations are all straight knowledge are needed for the future. And we have a message from one of the masters through Benjamin Krem. The dark before the dawn. Recent events in the Middle East and other areas have shown once again how precariously poised its peace, how tender and vulnerable a flower is it as yet. Nowhere, it would seem, have its roots gone deep anywhere. It would appear have men tended carefully at its early growth. The bright promise of the year now ended seems clouded and fraught with danger and mayhem. How to account for such dramatic change? Men tend, in the midst of such change, to see each event as separate, unrelated acts, which, multiplying out of their control, threaten their very existence. The reality is somewhat different. All change results from response to energy, and today, as never before, man finds himself bombarded by powerful forces, new and unfamiliar, with which he must cope. That he is coping reasonably well is not in doubt, despite all appearances. Man is better equipped to use these forces than hitherto, but as yet these unaccustomed stimuli galvanize him into actions, to precipitate or clumsy, the results of which he cannot always foresee. So powerful and omnipresent are these new energies that a period of slow adjustment is inevitable. We are witnessing simultaneously the rebirth of hope and freedom on a mass scale, and the last efforts of the old order to re-establish itself against the tide of evolution. The new age is on its way, and naught can halt its process. The man himself determines the speed and ease or otherwise of that forward achievement. New forces are gathering to avert calamitous war. Wise men from many countries are making their voices heard and are calling for discussions to avoid such folly. Through them does Maitreya thus guide the actions of men from behind the scenes. His inspiration will lead the nations back from the abyss. Thus will it be, and thus will men come to understand the sanctity of peace, the necessity of justice, the beauty of the rule of law. Each day that passes, nearer the day of declaration, when Maitreya will appear openly to all the world. On that great day, the shared joy of men and women everywhere will transform the present clouded picture of anxiety and fear. The current turmoil and threat are but the prelude to a new era of peaceful cooperation, to right the wrongs of the past, to create justice among the nations, to resolve ancient disputes, and to uphold the international law. When men look back on this time, they will see it as the dark night which precedes the brightest dawn, and will be glad to have lived at this eventful period. The world awaits the teacher. The teacher awaits his opportunity to emerge and in full view teach and serve.
You're with Emergence News, coming from the Plains FM radio recording studios in Christchurch, and joining me on the program today is Peter, and he's actually up in Wellington, the political capital of New Zealand, and we'll be back with Peter shortly. But first up, I'm looking at the latest Share International magazine. It's the November issue, 2023, and it's an article titled Nobel Peace Prize, awarded to Iranian activist. The imprisoned Iranian human rights defender Narges Mohammadi has been awarded the 2023 Nobel Peace Prize for her fight against women's oppression in Iran and promoting human rights and freedom for all. And as I said, this is an article from the Norwegian Nobel Committee, published on the 6th of October 2023. Mohammadi was selected out of a list of over 350 nominations, the 19th woman to win the prize in its 122nd year history, and the second Iranian woman. She has steadfastly refused to leave the country or stay silent. She began her activism as a physics student and worked as an engineer while writing women's rights columns for reformist newspapers until government pressure led to her dismissal. She has been repeatedly imprisoned for her activities over the last decade. She is currently serving a 10-year sentence in Tehran's Evin prison, infamous for its incarceration and torture of political prisoners, charged with spreading anti-state propaganda and acting against national security. She has consistently been on the front lines of human rights issues through her writing, education, and an advocate for 3 decades, despite 13 arrests, 5 convictions, and an aggregate sentence of 31 years in prison. While the regime wants to intimidate and restrain women through violence, she says women will not give up. Following the Nobel announcement, Mohammadi released this statement: "The global support and recognition of my human rights advocacy makes me more resolved, more responsible, more passionate, and more hopeful." In a written statement to the New York Times, she says, "I will continue to fight against the relentless discrimination, tyranny, and gender-based oppression by this oppressive religious government until the liberation of all women," and emphasised that she will never stop striving for the realisation of democracy, freedom, and equality. The source of that article can be found on the website nobelprize.org, or you can look up newyorktimes.com online. We'll join Peter on Emergence News. Back with Peter in just a moment. Thank you for listening to Emergence News. And just before I cross to you, Peter, I mentioned Carl Sagan, the American astrophysicist and cosmologist and author, and you asked what era is he from. He was born in 1934 and he died in 1996. And if you're interested in that scientist, you can look up carlsagan.com. Over to you, Peter.
Great. Thanks so much, Nigel. I was just going to read a piece about Maitreya. There has never been an avatar better equipped for his task than Maitreya. There has never been a need for such an avatar. But the world is now so complex, so divided, so riddled with both good and bad, positive and negative, that all of these forces have to be reconciled. This is his aim. This longing in the heart of the Christ for unity, for using his powers, his insights, to establish his nature, which is love in the world. In this way, he teaches us how to love, and as the Master says, love again. To love again is not to love in a normal negative sense or reactive sense, but to love totally, unconditionally, in the way that the Masters do. This will establish the brotherhood of man. Men, think of myself and my brothers in isolation. This, my friends, is far from the truth, Maitreya says. Every tremor of love felt within your heart is registered in mine. This is the simple truth of our relationship. Know then, my friends, how great is the joy I feel when I sense your expectation, your release from fear, and know your trust. When I tell you that my feet have already walked the pavements of your cities, this, my friends, is the truth. Men are known to me in the fullest sense. I know their hopes and fears. I know their longings and yearnings. I know their aspiration for good. Upon all of this I rely. Make it your avowed task to aid me in my coming work. May it be that you become channels for my love. In this way shall you fulfill your destiny. That's from Maitreya's message, number 73. Thanks very much.
This is the Emergence News on Plains FM. For more information, go to shareinternational.org.
Thanks so much, Peter. And that just about wraps it up for 2023. It's been a tumultuous year. And much of the information that we have provided you on the program today comes from the Share International magazine. It's a monthly magazine that features up-to-date information about the emergence of Maitreya the World Teacher. So if you are interested in Maitreya, the spiritual hierarchy, there's an article in each edition of the magazine from a master of wisdom. There are expansions on the esoteric teachings. Benjamin Creme answers a wide variety of topical and esoteric questions. There are articles and interviews with people at the forefront of progressive world change, and also news from United Nations agencies and positive developments in the transformation of our world. I consider this magazine unlike the majority of today's media. Share International magazine considers the entire world as a global village and all people as members of one human family. It gives its readers factual information about the injustices that persist, yet balances it with the inspired thinking of influential people in all fields and the practical solutions being implemented by little-known people in villages, towns, and cities everywhere. The purpose of Share International magazine is to inform people about the presence of Maitreya, the World Teacher, and his group, the Masters of Wisdom, as well as their priorities and teachings for the new time. Some of those teachings include Maitreya's priorities, which are an adequate supply of the right food, housing, and shelter for all, healthcare and education as universal rights, and the restoration and maintenance of the ecological balance of the world. The magazine also strives to raise public awareness of what is being done and what still needs to be done across the wide spectrum of human society and life on planet Earth.
All this information can be found on the Share International website, www.share-international.org, and also don't forget the podcasts, which are available on the Plains FM website.
We welcome your comments, questions and feedback. Please contact us at emergencenews@gmail.com.